Hello, Jeremy.
Hey, oh, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, I don't think I'm hearing you.
Oh, crap.
Uh-oh. You're hearing me, though, huh?
I am hearing you.
Yeah.
Hello.
That technical stuff, I could swear it all tested fine before the show. So
Really?
I'm sure it must be.
Are you hearing me at all right now?
Oh, I hear you a little now.
Okay.
Oh, that's better.
Okay.
Nice. Okay. No problem.
All right.
Thank you. Henry. Henry.
Hello?
Hello, Henry. It's complicated here. It's always complicated here.
I see that. I see you've got your alright, so those effects are happening in real time.
Real time? What do you know about real time?
I thought I was unaware if they were going to be post-processing effects or if they were going to be happening in real
Yeah,
time.
that's what everybody thinks. But it's not, you don't understand. What you see going on here on the screen is just coming out of my mind directly. There's nothing to process. This is what is going on in my mind right now.
Really?
That's it.
Are you? I read
so
your. You said you were in the future, right?
Distant, you're so far in my past that I couldn't, and I only remember the future, so it's not like I can't remember the past anyway.
Yeah.
I have to predict. I can only predict what happens in the past because I live backwards, you see.
Oh,
So
wow.
I remember the future. You remember the future?
I do not remember the future. I'm in
Oh, okay.
the past right now.
I get confused. Sometimes I think what I'm remembering is the past because it feels like the past to me because I'm remembering it.
Yeah.
You know? But it's not. It's the future for you
Yeah.
is what I remember. And I have to predict what must have happened in the past based on the future that I can remember.
All right.
That's how I do it. That's how it works.
So, is this kind of the is this like the narrative that's being pushed throughout all the episodes of Weirdos TV?
Oh my God! Hold on. Yeah, basically, this is what we say is really going on in the show. If something were to be going on in the show, but wait, I'm trying to get you up video. Oh, there you are. Oh no! Wow, the video just crashed.
Oh, crap.
I'll restart it. We can continue talking, and I'll restart it. That's
All right.
hilarious. This is one of the great. Thursday, if there's one thing you want to know about the show, it's that I inevitably get the system to crash.
Oh, yeah.
It pretty much happens every time, and I kind of consider it a failure if it doesn't crash.
Oh, yeah. I saw your
Really
there was a picture on your website of all the you had like a lot of equipment set up.
It's a lot of, it's like 5, and there's computers not pictured there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because, well, first of all, the setup changes all the time, but right, there's computers sitting in the closet, like the computer that actually broadcasts the show.
Yeah.
And the computer that you're on right now.
Yeah.
Is a little desktop mini that's sitting on a shelf, and I bring the video of you in and the audio of you into that, and then it has to come back out to this whole system, which is on yet another computer. And to make matters worse, I'm using that computer that you're on to record the show.
Oh, yeah.
So that computer's doing double duty, and that means I gotta. Oh, wow! It just crashed again. Really, wow.
Oh, I'm still hearing you.
Classic for the. Exactly. The audio is on a separate computer, so it's got its own whole thing that is still going. I'm pretty sure the recording is still getting the audio that's going down now, but the video program, which is ancient, crashes, and there's not much I can do. I've tried other DJ type programs to do the live processing, and none of them were as good. This is the one.
What program do you use?
It's called Grand VJ by a company called R Chaos with a K for chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great program. It's really easy to program the MIDI, which is very important to me.
Yeah.
Because all my controllers are MIDI controllers, and my audio is all being controlled by MIDI. So I need everything to be MIDI friendly.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I'm going to actually pull out a MIDI plug that may be causing the problem. there is a MIDI connection between the video and the audio computers, and I'm wondering if that was the problem. Let's see here. All right, I think we're back on the air now. Right, you can see.
Yeah.
Right, oh, and it just crashed again.
What the heck?
Wow, we are really in a weird loop. All right, I'm going to probably restart that computer, I guess. I don't know. Again, this is so part of the course. And the nice thing about the show is that because it's just my show, if I'm like, you know what, I don't feel like fixing this tonight, I just don't do the show.
Yeah.
Like, nobody can be like, no, but Jeremy, you're contracted to do the show, and we're not going to pay you now, or the audience is going to disappear, and we're going to cancel the show. Nope, no one can tell me nothing. So I can troubleshoot this while we're talking. If I get tired of troubleshooting it, I will simply have a regular conversation like we're having now. And if I can get the show working again, then we'll get back to the show. But yeah, it reminds me of when I pitched the show to the Adult Swim.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I thought it would be a perfect show for them. I thought they'd go for it in a second. You know, they could put it on at like 5 in the morning or something.
Yeah.
And they had a show on their website called Pitch Meeting. Right? So Pitch Meeting was the way that you could pitch shows to them. And that was amazing, I thought. But clearly, once I watched the show, it was not a show for actual pitches. It was a show to make fun of anybody who tried to pitch to them.
Oh.
And the show was not on the network. It was on the website itself. So the show was nothing really that fabulous. And the guys there probably could have put through a pitch if they liked one. But I guarantee that they never put through any of the pitches that came through to the show. It was just a joke.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, so's my show, right?
Yeah.
So I go on their show to pitch my show to them, and at first they're kind of into it. They think it's kind of interesting that I've got Weirdos.com, and a lot of people are impressed that I got on the internet early enough to get Weirdos.com before that became a popular thing to do, is get a special domain. So they love that, but then I started doing what I'm doing to you. I was like, now you're on my show. I'm not on your show. You're on my show. Yeah. And they were like, no, that's not cool, man. You're on our show. And they were deeply offended by this, clearly.
They wanted to run your show.
Well, they want to run anything. They don't like the idea that anything is not under their control. So they were bummed about this, and that was hilarious to me. And that's when they wanted to cut me off. They were really insulted that I was trying to put them on my show. Either they were insulted or they were worried about copyright issues or something. I don't know. Total pain in the ass, though. So, never went anywhere. And again, that's part of the point. I don't need the show to make money or succeed. That's a mistake.
So this is I read on your the little thing you sent me, the Weirdos mission or whatever.
The manifesto mission.
Yeah. You just made it so it could be your own independent thing, and you weren't gonna
Well, the whole idea was to make it sustainable.
Yeah.
Because, at the time that I started it, I had a band like everybody else I knew, and the band was wonderful, but it was hard to sustain because it costs money even just to rehearse the band, and then there's the issues of getting the band together and making sure that they actually do rehearse and show up to the rehearsals. And then you have to make sure that they play the music properly in the rehearsals. And then you have to get everybody to the show and set up all the freaking equipment. Yeah. And all this. And so it's not sustainable, right? Even if I were making money at it, which very few people do, it still would be not sustainable as I got older. You can see even the most, Paul McCartney was coming up to start to tour again when I was at this time. Yeah. And so he could tour in luxury, right? He didn't have to tour if he didn't want to. He could just stop the tour at any time and go home. He would tour for a couple of weeks and then go home. And I was like, okay, I suppose if you could do it like that, it's a little bit sustainable. But how many people could afford to do it like that? Those people are in a van, riding around the world, hoping to maybe make a buck and this sort of thing. So that's where I started to think there's not a great future in this. I'd better come up with a better plan. So at this point, technology was starting to get there. I could do it myself and on a computer. And now, of course, cut to 20 years later, it's
Yeah.
super simple to do it. It's easier to do it on the computer than anywhere else.
Hmm.
And the funny part was the whole time, everybody's like, oh, you're not doing a real TV show. You're just on YouTube. And I was like, I think YouTube has a future, and probably there will be TV shows on
Yeah.
YouTube. And of course, now YouTube is its own huge, successful streaming service.
You said you had a band. Have you done music for a while?
Oh, my whole life. Everything's right. Another way I could explain the show is I want to make music, right? That's all I really care about.
Yeah.
To make the music. So, okay, again, if I'm not going to go to a club, right, someplace where I'm going to make you full screen here. If I'm not going to go to a club somewhere and perform the music for everybody, I'm trying to push the right buttons here. Oh, there we are. Now we got you full screen. There we go. Nice, much better. Wow. Nice red hair.
Oh, thank you.
And it's funny. Henry makes me think of O. Henry, the writer.
Oh yeah.
Because I kept going, oh Henry.
Oh yeah.
And then I thought, right, no, that's like in the David Bowie song, Suffragette City. He's talking to some guy named Henry. Henry.
Yeah.
Henry. So it turns out Henry's this guy who, for some poor reason, can't afford the price of a train ticket from a place called Suffragette City.
Mhm.
The shade.
Okay,
I managed to stop it from crashing.
all
The
right.
ship always crashes.
Mhm.
This is the point. So it's very dangerous. I'm flying around, and the ship is crashing. And then it crashes. But okay, we'll try to get it under control. And then the band. Right. So the band I have now is virtual. It's virtual, but it's much more dependable. It doesn't mean it doesn't cause me any problems, though. Sometimes the band plays when I don't want them to, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But mainly, they never get the notes wrong, right? I can just tell him, here, I tell the guitar player, just play something. And he always gets it right.
Yeah.
And if I rehearse it so that I want him to play like this, he'll always play it just like that.
Mhm.
It's really helpful. And I don't have to worry if he's going to make it to rehearsal. He'll be there.
Yeah.
This guy is reliable. All I have unless the computer crashes. It just crashed again.
It's all right.
No, it's hilarious. I'm actually glad you're experiencing that part of the show because you wanted to interview me, and I was like, well, how much fun is it going to be for Henry if he's like part of the show while he's trying to conduct some sort of an interview for a podcast? I'm like, well, we'll see what happens because, as is happening now, if the system fails, then, right, I won't be doing the show. He'll get a relatively straightforward interview.
Yeah.
But if I can get the system working, then it's going to get weird again, and I'll, wander off into Samuel Beckett territory. So, did you have any other questions while I'm trying to get the damn thing working?
Yes. I have a bit of a list here.
Of course, go right ahead.
Um.
The system's failing in your favor, so you'll probably get a lot of your questions out while I already restarted the video computer.
Mm.
So I have no idea why I even had to do that. The funny thing about the failures in the system, from my point of view, is that it's not like, oh, there's this weakness in the system with this VJ software, and that's what always fails. In fact, it's never the same thing twice.
Mhm.
The failures are always vastly different.
All those working parts.
And right, that's the point. It's a very complicated system, a highly complex system.
Mhm.
So it consequently has these unexpected results that you would expect from a system with this kind of complexity. But, at the same time, it's bizarre because I do the show pretty often, at least once a month.
Mhm.
I sit down and record a few episodes. So, you'd think that after, what is it, 10 years
Yeah.
of having basically the same computer set up, and in fact, the software is old enough that the system's basically just been in place for years and years with very little change. What causes these failures, and what causes them to be different failures every time?
Yeah.
Why isn't it consistent and just fail the same way every time? Well, that's anybody's guess. But it's part of what keeps me interested.
Mm-hmm.
That it's like an experience in, technology.
I have a question for you. So I noticed that in a lot of your episodes you have a special guest, specifically Justin Robert Place.
Well, that's recent. Now, Justin is the most recent of the sort of people who became obsessed with the show and then decided to come on a lot. The original guest of the show is a guy that hung out with my band, and his name is John Gilly. And John was kind of like our publicist. He was just a kind of a guy that loved the band and got attached to the band.
Yeah.
And we wanted to give him something to do because he wanted to be involved. But he couldn't play music. He couldn't be on stage, really.
Mm-hmm.
So he became sort of our publicist. But at one point, you can see in the list of history, we did our first live TV show similar to this was called Reality, and we did it at the NYU Experimental Video Studio, and we were live on Manhattan Cable TV, just the way my show is now.
Yeah.
And it was amazing, and we were all set to have people call in and be guests on the show, but just before the show started, we got told that it wasn't working. The live feed wasn't coming through.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't broadcast us live, but we could send them the tape, and they would play the tape for us, which was, something. But of course, we were crestfallen because the whole idea was to be performing live on television.
The interaction with the audience.
That's right. So since we couldn't interact with anybody, I was like, fine, John Gilly, just go down the hall, go into one of the other offices, and pretend that you're a person at home watching the show and that you're calling in. Right. So John's not a great actor. He's a very enthusiastic person, but he doesn't always know, like how to make that work.
Yeah.
So he did his best, and it was wonderful, but it was also obvious that he wasn't really a caller. But I didn't care. And he made up a fake name for himself, Robert Hamilton, and that stuck. So now there's a character named Robert Hamilton, and John calls. He only calls. He doesn't do video. John doesn't understand technology at all. So he calls in, and he thinks of himself as a stand-up comic. Mm-hmm. So he'll call in and do his shtick, but it's barely comprehensible. John is not he's not that self-aware. He's like a really weird dude. It's like outsider art. So it's fantastic, and I love him, and he'll always be a part of the show because he was the first guest, the first real Weirdos guest, even back before Weirdos existed.
Yeah.
So, but he was the first guest on the actual Weirdos TV show, and he continues to call in. He could call in while we're talking. He calls in about 5 times a day.
Oh yeah.
Because it's something for him to do, and he gets to do his comedy, and it's similar to what I'm doing, right? It's a place to do his stuff free and clear. No one can tell him, don't do that, John, that's a bad joke. No one's going to tell him, don't say the N-word, John, that's bad. He says it all the time. He'll say all sorts of racist things that I'm totally embarrassed by, but hey, that's him, man, that's him. He gets to do what he wants. And that's the point of the show to a large extent. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do, least of all myself.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So then there was another guy named John Yodis. John Yodis came in. Hold on. And John was just like Justin. John was a fan who came in through video, and he started coming in a lot through Skype.
Yeah.
And it was great. John was not like John Gilly. John Yodis really got the show. He understood the aesthetic 100%. He understood the whole history of video art and what I'm doing with, everything. So it was great. because I had someone who really understood what was going on. Sometimes my girlfriend would come on the show as a guest, and she gets it. She's an artist. She knows about surrealism and stuff.
Mhm.
So that was fine. But not everybody comes on the show and knows what they should do,
Yeah.
or why they're on the show, or what to make of me if I'm getting into my really weird shit and talking about time and space. Right. And then there's plenty of people like you who come on the show, and it doesn't matter whether I riff on time and space like a weirdo stoner, or if I get serious and start talking about real things. They're ready. They're smart enough to figure it out.
Yeah.
But Justin is an interesting balance, because Justin, I mean, I think he has some mental health issues, which frankly I do too. And so I think he's, neurodiverse, which is great. But so sometimes I can't tell whether he's like on the edge of reality and doesn't quite know what he's saying, or whether he's just fucking with me.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure he knows, or I think sometimes he's fucking with me and sometimes he's totally lost it. And similar to me, right? Maybe he's not even paying attention to the difference. Why should he?
Yeah.
Kind of show what I be doing if that's what I required. So yeah, really cool that way. And Justin, I told him, I invited him on the show today. We haven't been able to schedule much.
Yeah.
And so that's part of it. But Justin also had this funny thing where at first he was like, I have all these great ideas for the show. I'm going to write some stuff for the show. And I'm like, no, Justin, that's not how it works. Nothing. And it's a rule. It's a rule on the show. I don't think it's in the manifesto. Because the show's about improvisation, nobody's allowed to prepare anything, ever. So all the sounds and everything, they're randomly selected. And I go through before the show starts. At some point during the week that I'm getting ready to do the show, I'll like go through and set up a bunch of grooves and instruments and things.
Yeah.
But I don't really pay that much attention to them. This is just shit that I just pick it out of a hat. It's on the computer. I just click here, click there. Yeah, give me a guitar. Yeah, give me a piano. Hey, some drums, please. And so again, it's so much easier than with the band. With the band, I would have to spend hours of rehearsal.
Yeah.
Okay, when I point my finger at you, you play that drum beat that you made up. And then when I wink at the bass player, he should come in and play that thing that we talked about. And so much easier with the computers. Just set up a bunch of shit and then push the buttons. And who knows what'll happen.
Yeah.
And to me, that's inspired by Pink Floyd.
Love Pink Floyd.
That's what I learned from Pink Floyd. It's like, why is the Dark Side of the Moon so great? Because they were working with synthesizers for the first times in their lives. Synthesizers were brand new, and they were like, we have all the money in the world and best synthesizers in existence, which were crap at that point.
Yeah.
What can we make them do? And the whole album is driven by what can you do with a synthesizer in 1973?
Yeah.
And a guitar with the effects that were available in 1973. And that forms their sound. So now I can do anything. I can do the effects from 1973, 1983, 1993,
Yeah.
or 2050,000 million. So everything is possible. So that makes it a little more difficult, actually. Because what am I going to choose if I can choose anything?
It's like limited by choices.
It's not even limited. They're really, by the time we're talking about the limitations of the system, we must have gotten past all the choices that I could have made, which were endless. So if I can make endless choices, then right, there really is no limit to the choices. It's up to me to make good choices.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what art is about. It's just about making interesting choices. And the one of the things I was taught by one of my mentors, a guy named Keith Johnstone, is that if you think you're being clever as an artist, you're not.
Yeah.
You're being so boring, and everybody's going to yawn and think you're so fucking pretentious. But if you do what you think is really obvious, glaringly boring and obvious, everybody's going to go, wow, I've never seen anything like that. That's so individual to you and your work. And nobody believes that until they experience it. But right, I've learned this the easy way, and it's amazing. I just do exactly what's in front of me, and everyone goes, I don't understand what you're doing, and how did you even think of that? And I'm like, how could I not?
Yeah.
It all makes sense to me, but sometimes other people watch it, and right away they get it. They see exactly what I'm doing and why. And other people can't fathom it, and other people hate it. Like it's wrong. I've transgressed.
Really?
Well, there's a silliness to the show that I think people generally resent. That I'm relentlessly silly whether they want to talk about something serious or not.
Yeah.
So I have had guests come on where they like representing a cause, a charity.
Yeah.
And they really wanted to tell everybody about, like, there was a guy who started going into a story about how he was abused sexually as a child.
Oh, yeah.
And this is one of the few times that I actually cut something out. It went out live. It was broadcast live. I would never edit the live stream. But when I made the episode with this guest, I cut out the whole child sex abuse theme because I'm like, yeah, no, we don't. So I think people might not like that about the show in some sense, that I never get serious. There are no issues to discuss. I'm not going to get political. I'm not going to talk about something topical.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be stuck in time. I don't want to talk about who's the president right now or who we don't want to be the president next year. I'm not going to talk about that.
It's just enjoy the art.
I want it to be, well, this is something I got from Monty Python. They were very topical, and I love that, but it's only bizarre to us as Americans because we don't know what was going on in Britain in 1969 and 1970, so the Monty Python stuff looks like really so bizarre. But if you were living in London in 1969 at the time, it was actually just parodies of what you would see on television every night. So that's great, but I like the absurd part when you have no fucking clue what they're talking about, which does happen in Monty Python when they do like Spot the Loony and stuff like that, or Find the Fish. Like, that's the stuff I like. It doesn't make any fucking sense no matter what time you're from. And they started to hone in on that, and they realized that the topical stuff was limited in its appeal to people who actually knew what they were talking about, whereas the really bizarre goon show influenced stuff was timeless. So yeah, being timeless and trying to get that sense of, if you tune into the show, it doesn't matter if you're watching an episode from 2011 or you're watching an episode from today, they're all basically the same thing. So you don't know, am I live? Am I broadcasting live right now while you're watching? Or no, this is from a long time ago, and it's really hard to tell.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell whether I'm live or not, but it's hard for me to know when I look at the show whether this was an old episode or a new episode. I look for clues, but yeah, I don't really know. I can't remember. I guess sometimes I'm like, well, I was probably been back in 2017 when I was sad that day.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I can remember like how I was feeling and stuff. But other than that, yeah, it's all just blends for me too. And so it's the same show, and that's part of the plot of the show. That nothing ever changes from my point of view. So to me, that's a big plot point.
Yeah.
But I'm stuck. I'm stuck in this weird moment. It's always what it is, but never changes. And that's kind of I'm obsessed with that idea, because then I got into the idea that this is supposed to be a sustainable show, right? That I should be able to do when I'm 90 years old or a million years old, and I shouldn't be like, oh my God, I can't possibly do the show, it's too tiring. Well, it isn't. I just have to sit here and gab.
Yeah.
That's fine. But, well, what happens if the show did get famous? And I was in that situation that some celebrities find themselves in, like Leonard Nimoy, where people are like, I don't want you to do the new thing that you're interested in. I only want you to do that thing you got famous for. Right. So if I get famous for this, great. If I have to do this forever and no one will ever let me do anything at all differently, perfect. Because this has been engineered to be everything I like, everything I love, everything that makes me really happy. So right, if I got the pleasure of being forced to do this, there's no way it will ever not be pleasurable. So it's either fun or I don't do it. And then if someone wants to pay me someday, that'd be great. That'd be, but probably it'll never happen.
Yeah, I mean, you never know.
You never know, and that's the point. But right, as a kid, I was an artist. I was like, well, but I have to be famous, right? I'm not important unless I'm famous, is the way they teach it to you. But of course, that's not true.
Yeah.
Right? You're important what? First of all, why does anybody need to be important? Right?
Yeah.
What's the point of that? Like, what are you going to get from your importance? And then the money is sometimes a trap because, oh, great, I'm making money doing this, which means I have to do it,
Yeah.
whether I like it or not. And if it doesn't keep making the money, they might not let me do it anymore. Right? Then I'm stuck and I'm beholden to some entity. Maybe an entity I created myself, even if it was a company I created myself. If the company says, yeah, but if you do it differently and you fuck it up and nobody wants to watch it, you have to stop doing it. Well, that's never going to happen. Ever.
So you just plan on doing this for like, just,
Ever.
yeah, like just having fun?
Ever. Well, that's the point. It's so much fun that I can stop doing it if I ever want to.
Yeah.
I never want to.
Yeah.
And I watch the show a lot. I watch my own show a lot, and I don't know. So I watch the stats on YouTube, so I know other people watch it.
Yeah.
But I don't really care. I make it for myself, and this is all my mentors. All my mentors. And when I was studying, every single mentor said the same thing. They all said, don't worry about whether the audience likes it or not. Just make something you like. Paul McCartney says this. Everybody says the same thing.
Yeah.
Don't make art for other people. Make it for yourself. And I'm like, well, I hear that that's a wonderful idea, but what if no one wants to pay me for art that I want to make exactly the way I want to make it? Then how will I continue to make the art? Because eventually, like if I need a theater or a venue, and nobody shows up, they won't let me into the venue next time. So I used to want to own my own venue. And then I realized liability insurance.
Yeah.
You don't want to own your own venue. It's a terrible idea. So this is a much better idea. Instead of owning a venue, I own a television network.
Yeah.
On the internet. Where anybody from anywhere in the world, I had a kid on from Liverpool one time, and he couldn't talk too loud because he was in his bedroom and his parents were upstairs. And if they heard him, he'd be in trouble because it was after his bedtime.
Yeah.
But he was having a great time. He was one of my favorite guests. The episode is called Bananas Are Aliens. It's from like 2013 or whatever. And he was fantastic. The kid was totally on. He said some of the best stuff, and he had to keep his voice down, so this was a great constraint on him.
Yeah.
He didn't want to say much, but every so often he would say like one word. And it was great.
I gotta write that title down.
My favorite part.
I'm gonna check that out later.
Oh, please. Titling the episodes is one of my favorite things. This is another Frank Zappa influence. Oh, it just crashed again.
Oh.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, we had it working there for how long, right? I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. Yeah. And then it just failed. It just failed now.
Does this...
And why? Why?
When you're, like, filming an episode, do you ever...
Yeah.
Like, does it... You have, like, for, like, 20 minutes or so, and then it crashes, and you're like, okay, that's the stopping point?
Well, that's right. Very often, that's my clue. That's my cue.
Yeah.
Like, right. If you're gonna make it difficult on me, but then other times, no. I've got a guest book, and I'm gonna keep going because the guest is coming on, and I don't want to disappoint the guest.
Yeah.
Right. If I've scheduled with a guest, but how often does the guest not show up? Very often. Very often. I had a guest scheduled like a couple of weeks ago, and the guy had contacted me, right? I didn't book him.
Yeah.
He was commenting on your YouTube stream. He was like, this is the greatest show I've ever seen. And I was like, oh, that's so great. Come on the show as a guest. He said, I would love to come on as a guest. I said, okay, just email me and we'll set it up. And he emailed me immediately, like right away. I got an email from him.
Yeah.
And, oh, yes, this Saturday. Come on, man. And I didn't get an email back. So I was already a little like, And then, of course, yes, he was a no-show on Saturday.
Yeah.
I emailed him before the show to confirm and didn't hear back then either. And there you go. But it's fine, right? Exactly. If I booked an important guest and the guest couldn't make it, and the whole show was going to be great if I had this famous guest. I have had some famous people.
Really?
I had the guitarist, Captain Beefheart.
Not particularly.
He's a rock guy from the '70s. He worked with Frank Zappa.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
highly recommend it. Captain Beefheart is one of the weirdest uh, acts ever. Like the music is totally out there. It gets a little samey after a while. He doesn't have a lot of variety, but the stuff is weird, and he sings like a hobo. In fact, the Tom Waits voice, the whole voice that Tom Waits used, is totally taken from Captain Beefheart.
Oh yeah.
When I first heard Tom Waits, I didn't like him. I was like, "Oh, come on, man! You're just doing Captain Beefheart."
Yeah.
But yeah, Tom Waits, of course, is amazing. But it's different, and Beefheart is much weirder than Tom Waits gets, even at his weirdest. And it's amazing shit. It's really like the best. So Beefheart is a big influence on the show, and Gary Lucas is his guitarist. And I met him through Facebook and was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna have the Captain Beefheart guitarist on the show!" Like, wow, it's like the most famous person. My girlfriend's a little bit famous, but Gary Lucas is real famous, and I was so excited. And he was great. He came on the show and he played guitar for me. But then I also helped him fix his computer, and he was a total pain in the ass trying to help him fix his computer.
Yeah.
So now I never want to talk to him again, which is a shame.
What was wrong with this computer?
Oh, he's cheap. He's a cheap bastard. Now, he probably doesn't make a lot of money because he's not that famous, but he makes more money than I do. He tours the world, and he didn't want to give up his like 2011 Mac laptop.
Oh yeah.
So I did my best to like get it working. I swapped out the battery for him and stuff, and I got it working. But you know, he didn't want to pay me, which was fine, right? I wanted to do it as a fan and do him a solid, you know, as a great fan. But he made my life hell. He was calling me every 5 minutes. "Hey, this application feels slow now." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm not your tech support guy. I did you a solid and replaced some bits of your aging computer for free. I did real work. All he had to do was buy the parts. He got the labor for free." And I was like, man. So, yeah, I had to, like, ban him and say, "Never call me again." Luckily, he had already been on the show, so I didn't lose the appearance. But it was a shame because definitely the most famous person. All right, we're back. We're back on the air.
All right.
I don't know. We'll see how long it goes before it crashes.
I do have.
Do we have more questions?
I have one. I have another question.
I do have.
This is like slightly in relation to the Justin Robert place one. I think this was in your like the title of the episode is the title of the episode, etc. Like I think
like the most recent episode, yeah.
Yeah. I had a question about you guys were discussing someone named Catherine.
Oh, okay. So this is a great example of where Justin, I can't tell where the edge is.
Yeah.
Which is very intriguing to me because I'm usually really good at that. And I know whether somebody is insane or they're just fucking with me or what, or they're just being silly in line with the show. So, right, before we even do the episode together, Justin says, have you spoken to my friend Catherine? And I'm like, no, I don't know who you're talking about, Justin.
Yeah.
And Justin's like, well, she's a sociopath, and she's my friend. And so right away I'm like, Justin, you shouldn't have a friend who's a sociopath. That's bad.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, really? I really like her. Like, it's clearly she's his girlfriend, not just his friend.
Yeah.
And she treats him like crap. So I'm trying to, like, help him with this, you know? I'm like, Justin, poor Justin. And then he gets into this weird thing where he's like, you're Catherine. You're Catherine pretending to be someone else, and you're fucking with me, and you're gaslighting me. And I'm pretty sure he's serious, and he's, like, really freaking out.
Really?
So I'm like, just save it for the show, man. Just save it for the show.
Yeah.
And he does, because he comes on the show and he totally goes into the same crap. How do I know you're not Catherine? You're really her, and you're trying to fuck with me. And I'm like, dude, I don't know Catherine. I've never met Catherine. I don't want to meet Catherine. I hate Catherine. I hope Catherine goes out of your life. So eventually I convince him to break up with Catherine. which I'm pretty proud of because she was probably fucking with the poor guy.
Yeah.
He lives like way up in Ontario or something. So I get the feeling that he doesn't have the most glamorous life in the world. And he's a great guy. And he really, then the point is then when he's on the show, he also will do this bit where he just will get weird and put his face real close to the camera and make weird faces. And it's so like self-aware.
Yeah.
Like he's doing the show. He's really got the aesthetic and wow, he knows, he's making weird faces and he's like he won't say a word, but he'll like disappear from the screen and then slowly kind of move his face into frame and I mean stuff that he clearly knows that he's doing good shit. And then other times he's freaking out. So I think he just, like a lot of us, he can lose it sometimes.
Yeah.
And if he loses it, it can get weird. And then other times he's totally on and everything's fine and he's totally lucid. So absolutely, I've offered to him the same spot that I did to John Yodis. You can be the co-host. You can come on the show whenever you want. It's an open invitation. Whenever I'm recording, I will call you. So it's great. I couldn't value it more because I've been in situations when I in fact, it's in the manifesto. One of the big things that happened 10, 12 years ago was that I got to do the show at a theater. I had a lot of money back then, so I rented a big theater.
Yeah.
And of course, I lost all the money. I made $0 on the show, but I didn't care. Again, it was part of the point. I wouldn't have spent the money if I thought I was going to make it back. I wouldn't do the show. I wouldn't spend it on this show. If I wanted to make the money back, I'd spend it on something that I thought would be profitable. I know this show is not profitable. So I just spent the money so I would have a theater and I could do the show mainly for my friends, for the video. So I have it all on video. But what the video doesn't show is that there's no one in the audience. The theater's empty. But it looks like I'm in a real theater because I'm in a real theater.
Yeah.
So it's nice because I got to do the bit where I'm doing the show, and you can see the show is being broadcast into the theater onto the back wall with a big projector. And then I say, oh, the ship has landed. And I do kind of a Wizard of Oz thing.
Yeah.
Don't pay attention to that guy behind the curtain. The curtain gets pulled back, and there I am with the setup that you see on the web. One of the ones that's on the web, the one with the piano, is the one in the theater. So the curtain gets pulled back, and they see me sitting there with the piano, talking to a microphone, the camera pointed at me, so they can see the whole setup. And then I walk out on stage, and I did a number of different songs. It wasn't always Psycho Killer. Sometimes it was original songs. But I would do a song at that point, and then I would lead the audience out the back way of the theater, where I had set up this weird tunnel with moving lights in this very psychedelic way back out to the street. So they were supposed to feel that they've had their mind transformed. And they were, ripping their faces off. And that's, of course, a big part of the show, too, right, is drugs. The band, when I was doing the band, we were always wasted. And it was always part of it for me. Like, why shouldn't I be wasted?
Yeah.
Isn't that part of doing rock and roll? You get wasted. And as a theater person, I'm like, well, you can make fun of that, and you can be like, oh, well, you're just being wasted on stage. What's wrong with you? But I'm like, no, this is a way of doing experimental theater. I'm altering the behavior. I'm altering my mind before I perform the piece. That means the piece is going to be influenced by the drugs. This is experimental. This is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So the fact that people maligned it and were like, oh, you're not taking it seriously, just led me more to being like, fine, I don't need to make money off of this. I'm more interested in what happens when I do theater on drugs than I am with being famous or winning an Academy Award or something like that. So I try to take as much drugs as I can for the show. Generally, I can't take psychedelics for the show because the setup is too complicated. But I've taken so many psychedelics that at this point, I'm pretty much tripping all the time.
Yeah.
And then, of course, marijuana has become legal, and during my time as an artist, marijuana's gone from, sort of scorned a bit to completely legal, and finally people are realizing that it's so much better than alcohol, and that anybody who does alcohol over, you know what they say, I quote this all the time, 5 drunk guys will start a fight. 5 stone guys will start a band.
Oh yeah.
It's true though, right? It's actually, you can prove it. It's scientifically provable. And you get people wasted, and I've done this many times. You get non-musicians high, and then you put them in a recording studio. Frank Zappa also did this on his first album. And you just say, go. Just make some noise, guys. Have fun.
Yeah.
And again, the drugs are a big influence. They're so fucking wasted, they're not worried that they're gonna fuck it up. So they go nuts, and you record it. And you have that recording forever. And you can make that recording into many pieces of art that can be expertly made into art, even if it was an amateur night. So that's the other thing. My mentor, Grotowski, taught me that amateurs are the good ones. It means you're doing it for love. If you're doing it for the money and you're a professional, that means you're a mercenary. You might only care about the money. Now, maybe you care about the money and the love. But you might have to make choices about the money and give up the love, and it happens all the time. People become famous usually by giving up the thing that got them into the art in the first place. And they realize that in order to be a commodity and earn money, they're going to have to stop being the way they used to be. If Pink Floyd came around today and said, we're a new band called Pink Floyd and we play this music by Syd Barrett, they wouldn't get anywhere. They'd be just like me.
Yeah.
They'd be sitting in a recording studio. Now, I worked with some guys recently who do this. They play rock and roll in a studio. They have no interest in gigging. They're just like me. They just play for themselves. They have a beautiful studio with a real Hammond organ in it, a B3 with the Leslie cabinet. So I got to go in there and be their keyboardist one day.
Oh yeah.
And they're just like me. They occasionally have parties in the studio. But other than that, they get together when they feel like it. They play the tunes that the guy wrote, and they're good tunes. He's a good singer and bass player. He has a collection of fat, antique, vintage basses that he knows how to play brilliantly, and bass cabinets to go with it, vintage stuff. And the songs are good. I had a great time with them. But yeah, I advocate for leisure art. The Balinese are very into this. If you go to Bali, art is not something you do to get famous or be a professional or make money or be famous or well-known or loved. It's part of everyone's everyday existence. Everyone all day is like drawing and painting and sculpting and dancing and singing, and they're not worried about whether they're doing it properly. There are professionals who have to do it properly and get paid, but those guys they're training at like 5, and it's their whole life. That's all they do their whole life is the Balinese dancing. But right, they're not in it for the money. These guys are in it for the art. And they started when they're babies, and then they do it their whole life, and it's all just about the craftsmanship. And then the other people are doing it for leisure, for spiritual reasons. Right? And so that's the main thing I learned as an experimental theater guy. If you're not getting the spiritual high, then the art is not really art. I don't care if you want to call it entertainment or you want to call it art, but you're not having the experience that I'm having. If you're not like out there. And so there's room, there's definitely people who can make money and do it their own way. My girlfriend is a great example. She's relatively famous and only does art that she likes and wants to do, and she manages to pay her rent. She don't live the life of a queen, but she manages to pay her rent with her art, and I respect the hell out of her, but she totally understands and respects why I have no interest in playing that stupid game. So the part of it is that she's lucky. The art that she wants to do is popular because she has something that she wants to say that other people want to hear. She's a feminist. She's into body positivity, which is now
I'm having trouble hearing you, Jeremy. Oh no! The microphone died. Okay, he's gonna replace the batteries. Okay, he said keep hosting for him. I'm not really sure what to say here. We've got my cat back here. That's Rocky. His name is Rocky because he's dumb as rocks. We just got him last night. Me and my pals, we were just out walking, and we found this stray cat. And he was just a stray cat, and we weren't fully sure if he was stray. And then a couple came out of the building that we were in front of, petting the cat, and they were like, "Hey, if you want that cat, you can have him. He's stray." And we were like, "Oh, okay." So we went around, we knocked on some doors, we made sure it wasn't anybody's, and then it is now at my house. Oh yeah, hold on. I forgot to tell you why it's called Rocky. Well, I did tell you, but so basically we concluded.
He's dumb as me.
Oh,
Dumb
hello.
as a rock.
He's back.
I'm dumb as a rock.
No, not you.
Rock.
Not you.
Rock? No, I'm just like Rocky the cat. I'm dumb as a rock, and I'm proud of it. And the point is that dumb means I can't talk. Right? It's not about stupid. Stupid is different. Now, if I was stupid, that would suck. I don't want to be stupid. But I'm not stupid, I'm dumb. As you saw, you took over for me because I was dumb. I was literally dumb.
It was the technology's fault.
I'm telling you. So, just another thing that can fail. And of course, I have batteries ready, but it means I have to deal with the fact that, wait a minute, I have to change the battery.
Yeah.
So you covered brilliantly, but it gave you the experience of the show because, right, one of the hard parts of the show is I got a lot going on here. I am playing music. I am manipulating the video. I am managing a guest screen if there's a guest. I have this all on wonderful MIDI keyboards, right, so I can control everything, but I got to remember what does what. I got a lot of different customized buttons.
Yeah.
And I know what they do, and I have a pretty good memory how to retain, like, what to do when. But what if I push the wrong button?
Yeah.
Or what if something happens? And that's what always happens. So it's hilarious to me, and it's part of the fun. But yes, the other thing is that, so what you got to experience there is, so all of that's going on, and you didn't have to do any of that, right? You were just hanging out, and then you have to figure out what to say.
Yeah.
What am I gonna say? What am I gonna say on the show tonight? And this is not a problem for me in general. Like I'm very loquacious, as you have noticed. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like, you're doing a show. I'm doing a show. What's going on in the show? And my goal is to not make sense.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, that's harder than making sense.
Oh yeah.
If you want to make sense, yeah, that's not that tricky. You'll start telling a story about your cat, and that's great. You made sense. And you did, as you stumbled and thought you didn't introduce the story properly, but you did. You totally made sense. And so what I find in trying not to make sense is that, yes, I often am making sense, even though I'm trying not to. And I have to actually trick my brain. And I catch my brain starting to finish a sentence properly. and then I just throw in a hippopotamus,
Yeah.
hypotenuse. And this is something, again, that I learned from Monty Python, where there's a sketch of a guy who every so often says the wrong fuse box. And he doesn't realize that he's said the wrong thing, and other people notice that he's used the incorrect word, but he never dribbles.
Yeah.
So I love that character, and that's my goal, is if I start making sense, I'm going to just take a left turn. Even if I'm making sense to myself because I'm talking about how angry I am at this guy who's not paying me the money that he's supposed to pay me, right? I don't want to talk about that. That makes too much sense. So I would start like talking to that guy and saying, "You didn't pay me the motherfucking marbles that you were supposed to put in my mouth. They came out of your ear and then they were covered in mucus. I didn't like mucus." So right, trying to constantly take a left turn so that the next sentence doesn't make any more sense than the previous sentence. And the idea is to obscure the meaning more and more and more, hopefully so that I can't even follow it. But the funny part is, when I watch back the show, it still makes sense to me. And I can see exactly what was going on in my mind. And in some sense, it's like therapy. That whatever I'm trying not to say, I'm going to say. It's going to come out big time.
Yeah.
So I can't repress anything. And it's a good analysis where I get to watch it back and go, wow, I'm really upset about that, aren't I? I talked about that for a half an hour. I must be really pissed off at that guy. Or the opposite. Like, I can't believe when I do a song how coherent the lyrics are. Right? The song's much harder than what we're doing now. Now, this is just like Ken Nordine. I just got to keep talking. But I'm doing a song. This is apparently how Lou Reed used to do it with Velvet Underground. They would just start playing, and he would pull out his notebook and start doing some lyrics. Well, okay, that's great. If you're a good enough lead singer, you can just start doing it, right? You just do a new number and say, what number am I doing? Oh, yeah, I'm doing the number about heroin. I'll just sing that song. So every time I'm doing a song, it's for the first time, but I sing it as if it's for the millionth time. Oh, yes, this song, and you'll hear me say this on the episodes all the time. Yes, we do this song every night, which really means I've never done it before.
Yeah.
And then occasionally I'll do a cover tune or something from one of my bands. I sometimes I'm a composer and I write songs for other people. So here's one. I wrote this song for a guy named Spats. I met Spats on a public access cable TV show that I went all the way to Staten Island to be on, and nobody watches it any more than they watch my show. But who cared? My agent, I had an agent at the time who booked me on the show, and of course that's the best he could do for me. He was not a great agent. But I went on this show and I met Spats, and Spats and I took a liking to each other, and Spats was like, I've got these lyrics and I need a composer. And I was like, sure, Spats, I am there for you. So here is Spats' song that he wrote called Zodiac. It's about the Zodiac. And see, I can play along live with this, so I can make it a real new version, so it's not just a recording. But I've got the recording, and I can play on top of it. Now here comes the verse. Check out the verse. It'll come in a bit. There's a whole. Wait, here we go. Go far, go far. Yet I can't tell if our future will do me well, do me well, do me well, do me well. Well, the future hold for me. What will I do? What will I be? Zodiac. Right, so you get the idea.
Yeah.
So I can do a number anytime I want, and it can be a new number, it can be an old number, and I don't have to. What I did learn that I had to do, though, was that I need to note down what key is the song in. I didn't do this for the first, 10 years of the show or something. about 7 or 8 years into the show, I was like, it would really be great if I at least knew what key we're in, so that I don't have to like fumble around for 5 minutes when I want to do the solo to
Yeah.
figure out what the hell key we're in.
Yeah.
So that revolutionized the show, and suddenly, instead of all the numbers being like really discordant numbers sounding more like the Residents than anything else, suddenly I could do any style I wanted. And if I wanted to be in the right key, I could be in the right key. And then I got good guitar samples, and I started to be able to play like real Frank Zappa type guitar solos. And this has become my total obsession now, that I can actually play the guitar just like Frank.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can pull up one of these. It's totally different than it was when I started. Like guitar samples, when I started with synthesizers, guitar samples were the worst. Like you couldn't get anything that even remotely resembled a guitar. Now let's see if I can get one of these up here. Oh, is that one not working? I have a bunch of these where it sounds so like a guitar just to begin with. Let's see if I can find this. And then you've got these virtual amps and virtual pedals. These are all synths. Anyway, it's been very exciting to me to be able to play the guitar and have it actually sound like a fucking guitar, rather than some kind of rip-off thing that sounds like a synthesizer wishing it was a guitar, which is what I played in bands for years, right? Back in the days. But now, like, wow, I can get a guitar with a wah-wah pedal. Sounds like Frank Zappa in 1968 in his studio. Let's see, I got one of these here? I don't know. And this is the point, right? And this is another thing that technically fails. Do I know whether the guitar is going to work that night? Do I remember where I put the guitar? Which song did I even dial up a guitar in? I don't remember. I did it all so quickly. I try not to think. I just go through as quickly as I can. I need a lead instrument here. I need a bass. Put a bass line in. Fine. Find some kind of bass line. And then just make sure they vaguely sync up, and then figure out what key it is, and then move on. And so I take about 5 minutes to do each little setup, and I have 25 setups for the show, for the recording session. So I can usually take those 25 setups and do about, I don't know, maybe 4 episodes, 5 at most, and that's a lot, right? That's they're half-hour episodes, so that's like 2.5 hours of straight recording.
Yeah,
and that is a lot. So by the end of that night, I'm usually totally good. It's really gratifying. And if I can't, and like I say, if I can't make it through, if I do 10 minutes and everything crashes, and I'm like, fuck it, oh well. Keep that 10 minutes of video, save it in Final Cut. Next time I get another 15 minutes of video, slam it in there. I've got a new 28-minute episode. And of course, the big goal for me is that it airs on Saturday nights at 11:30 in New York City, right opposite Saturday Night Live. Just happens to be on a station that nobody watches. But I don't care. I love it. I love it.
Well, I have one more question before I think I have to go.
Yeah,
but
it's been great, and we managed to get enough of the Weirdos version and recorded that we'll have a good episode out of this. So I will let you know when your episode of Weirdos TV is airing.
All right.
Please let me know when my episode of your.
I will let you know.
Yeah, because this is really fun. I as you can tell, I love talking about myself.
Yeah. So this is a bit of a boring question, but I was just very curious about like what your background footage, like what you use, because I noticed it was very all over the place.
Yes, no, great question. Absolutely. I, of course, like so many things in the show, the important thing to me is that no money can be involved. So day one of working on the show, I'm like, I'm going to need some stock footage, and I'm going to need some free stock footage. So the answer is the Internet Archive at archive.org.
Oh, yeah.
Now, some of the stuff you're looking at right now, I think might come from stock footage companies that will give you a few free clips.
Yeah.
And so I can go to every free stock footage company on the web and, okay, fine, get some more free clips. But Internet Archive is the place. They have got ephemera, is my favorite category, from, everything. TV stations that run local news, educational films from the 70s, you name it. And it's all public, of course. It's what's slipped into public domain, so I never have to think twice about it. But what's amazing is what's there that I can't believe is in the public domain.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Santa Claus versus the Martians.
Oh, yeah.
So for my Christmas episode, I used Santa Claus versus the Martians as part of Weirdos TV. And to me, that's like, I would have paid $1 million
Yeah.
to use Santa Claus versus the Martians live. And there's like the original Wizard of Oz films that were made by L. Frank Baum himself in his silent film studio in 1912 or whatever, long before Dorothy was Judy Garland. And I love it. I can use this stuff for free, and it's deeply inspiring to me. So again, when I'm trying to figure out what am I going to say on the show, right, there's Wizard of Oz going on behind me, and I am the wizard. So I could just start telling stories about being the wizard and what it was like going to Oz and all that. So yeah, Internet Archive I totally recommend for anything you need for video, because you can't believe it. It's like I was saying before about too many options. If anything, I go to Internet Archive and go, where do I start? Because they have, hundreds of thousands of videos all for free, waiting for you in many different formats to download and use at your leisure. So what do you want? You want commercials from the 50s? You want high school footage from... You can search. You can look in categories and browse. So, right, inevitably, after a couple of hours, my eyes have glazed over. I've downloaded more videos than I can even load up into my program.
Yeah.
I've maxed out the amount of free slots I have in the program, and then then when I do the show, I don't know what's going to come up. I'm pushing buttons now. I vaguely know that I will be changing the background video, but I don't know what video that's going to be.
Yeah.
Like this video you can see here, this is from an actual VHS recording. You can see the tracking problem. So this was actually digitized from a videotape that I recorded myself.
Oh, really?
On a VCR in the 80s. The videotape went on for 6 hours of whatever was on TV that night.
Yeah.
In Cleveland, as it happens. And then I only digitized about 20 minutes of it.
Oh, yeah.
One day in the 80s. I just happened to find that videotape and digitize part of it. And then it sat around for another 30 years. And then I said, oh my God, I need some background footage. Look, I've got this digitized clip from this videotape from the 80s. So, right, this is gold. This is absolute gold, and it's just sitting on my computer. And I brought in. So I do have some footage that I took myself. And occasionally you'll see some footage that you might be able to tell, like, okay, this is too shaky to be professionally done by a TV station or something. This must have been when Jeremy was driving and he stuck the camera out the window. And he didn't pay attention, but he loved the fact that there was movement. Because that was the first thing I decided about the footage for the show. Is that the point is, right, if I'm doing a rock and roll show, I can get the band to do interesting stuff. I can get the band to wear costumes. I can have a video behind the band, but I can have the band lit in weird ways. I can have the band dancing or doing really weird stuff. But me, in my head, I can't dance.
Yeah.
My body. I can't move around the stage other than this.
Yeah.
Which is not really that visually exciting, although it's something. So I realized Butthole Surfers were a big influence here, but I realized that I needed video footage that was constantly active. So that when you're looking at the screen, you're never going like, this is boring. So the screen always has a lot of stuff going on as much as possible.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to worry because I'm really, again, the focus for me is the music. I really just want to play my music. It can be like I'm doing now, where it's just soundtrack stuff, or it can be a full musical number, but that's what I'm really focused on. So I need video that's going to cover. I need video that's going to just do itself, be trippy, be interesting, and then sure, occasionally I'll go, fine, let me change the effect on the background video, or change the effect on me, but I have to remember to do this. And it means that I can't be in the middle of a guitar solo and focus on the guitar solo. I have to be in the middle of a guitar solo and also decide this is the moment to change the effect. And so I do it, and I try to do it in rhythm because that's very exciting to the audience, I think. I know it is for me as an audience member, when you hit a change right on the beat, and you go,
Oh, yeah.
But your system isn't that responsive.
Yeah.
I don't have the latest and greatest computers, so hitting a button is not necessarily going to work on the beat. It's not necessarily going to work at all. I never know what's going to happen. So I have to prepare for that, and I've been preparing for that for the whole production. It's always been like, what happens when we fail? It's something I learned live in live theater and bands, but it's so much easier now.
Yeah.
Because sure, who cares? It fails. I don't use that footage. Or it fails and I do use that footage.
Yeah.
Because it failed spectacularly. But yeah, I try never to cut anything. My goal is to just do whatever happened. Oh well, it wasn't great. It wasn't perfect. I think of it like when I was a kid watching the Johnny Carson show or Saturday Night Live. Like, you can't get it perfect. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
If you got, Saturday Night Live, they would have, a week to rehearse. And that's not much for an hour and a half. Johnny Carson didn't have any time to rehearse.
Yeah.
Or older live TV. Like, if you ever saw, like, your show of shows or this kind of stuff. Soupy Sales was a famous live TV guy who got so desperate on the air one time that he said to the kids, I want you all to go to your parents' bedroom and take out $1 from their wallet and send it to me at the address of the show. And they did. He got a lot of money from this and then got promptly fired because you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
But that's, you get desperate on the air, right? So I do. I've done the show for long hours where I'm getting desperate for material and I'm just pulling shit out of my ass. Whatever I can cut. But who cares? But I try not to cut that shit because that's the goal.
Yeah.
That's what I'm really here for. If I do a great musical number, that's wonderful, that's lovely, and that's sort of why I think I'm here. But the real reason is to get to the end of my rope and do the stuff that only comes out when you're totally losing it and everything's broken and all I can do is make like one sound with a piano because that's the only thing working.
Yeah.
And the mic is falling off my face and I don't want to touch my face and yeah. So that is your answer to where the video footage comes from and why I use it to save myself from being a boring musician.
Well, thank you very much for this interview. It's been very good.
You were a great guest on my show. I hope I was a good guest on your show.
Of course, as always.
I love that we could collaborate that deeply.
Yes.
You're welcome back anytime you want.
All right.
And of course, tell everyone on your podcast that they're welcome to be a guest on the show.
All right.
Just like you did. If they email me at tv@weirdos.com, I will immediately respond and say, yes, let's arrange a guest appearance for anyone who wants it. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I will. Thank you. Have a good day.
Have a better one.
What a nice guy.